Hello and welcome to SportsZone. I am your host, Ben Florence, and we have an average panel over here with Michael Godner.
Fanatic Radio.
Yes. And friend of the show, Tyler Tomea. This is SportsZone.
Hello and welcome. This is SportsZone. As you can tell, Ben is not here. I'm assuming you guys watched the intro where there was someone who was a little bit different than Ben sitting here. But I'm going to be your host today. If you remember from last week, Ben was not going to be here. He was going home for the week. So I am filling in, but we're going to have a great and abundant panel this week. And by abundant panel, I mean there's 5 of us here, so you're going to get a lot of coverage and a lot of FaceTime from these guys to my left, starting with Deepak. How you doing here?
Good. Yep.
How's your week been?
It's been solid, I guess.
Solid? Okay.
Kind of crunch time.
Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. And we got a new guy to the show this week, and hopefully we're going to see him coming back every week. We got Nick way down at the end. How are you doing this week, Nick?
Pretty good, thank you.
You excited to be here?
Absolutely. I always love sports, and this is a great opportunity to share my love of sports with some other people.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. So we're going to start right in on the biggest topic of the week so far, and that has been the Olympics. As most of you probably know out there, the Olympics are wrapping up, and as of right now, they have finished, and the closing ceremonies will be there. Ends up being with Russia on top with 33 medals versus U.S. to 27, 28, I think is what it was. And then third place was some other team, Canada, Norway. But what did you guys think about these Olympics? Just kind of brief, yes, no, liked it, didn't like it, hated it. What did you guys think about the Olympics in Sochi?
I liked as much as I could see because the Olympics, it's always a time to really experience the true magic of sports, bring the world together. And I mean, it was great to see that there was no threat that actually was carried out. And I mean, it's always a good time, always amusing, really great to see some of the sports that are just performed that you would never believe people could do.
Exactly, yeah. And Nick, what'd you get from this Olympics?
I've always been a huge fan of the Olympics. I know the athletes weren't too fond of these Olympics because of some of the hotel conditions. I always love the Winter Olympics. There's so many unique events, and I've always wondered, how do some of these athletes get into that sort of event?
Yes, and speaking of events, we're going to go to one of the most popular events that there is there, and actually the national sport of Russia, and that's going to be hockey. And coming from the United States, we know that it was kind of a disappointing week for U.S. hockey. The women end up losing in the gold medal match to Canada 3-2 in overtime, and the United States men end up losing to Canada as well, but that pushes them to the bronze medal game, and they end up losing that one. Deepak, 0-2 in the medal games right here for the U.S. hockey teams. What happened here? I mean, they were so hot. Both teams were so hot going into this, and then they just kind of faded off once it got to the end.
And I mean, that's basically it. They were hot going in, and then you just got tired. You got sloppy. The women, I mean, they played a strong tournament all throughout. Unfortunately, they lost that gold medal game to Canada, where we were up 2-0, and with Canada came back, bring it to 2-1 with less than a minute left in the third. They pulled their goalie. They have a one-man advantage, and they scored their second, bringing us to overtime, and where we ultimately lost there. The men, they got tired after a while, and you can't blame them. I mean, it's always a hard-fought tournament throughout the Olympics. Canada, I hate to say it, but they are the stronger team. Finland was definitely a surprise, though.
It definitely was. And Nick, I mean, coming into this, U.S., we knew that the U.S. teams were going to be pretty good, and we knew that the Canada teams were going to be good. But off of the Olympics a few years ago, we thought that the U.S. was going to be able to edge out Canada. What happened in these games for the United States?
Well, with Canada especially, on the men's side, you've got so many NHL stars. You've got Crosby, who's debatably one of the best players in the world. And it's not only him. They've got a very deep lineup. And though the U.S. also has a deep lineup, it just wasn't enough to overcome the depth of the Canadian lineup.
Yeah. And I mean, definitely the heartbreaker of the week was definitely the women's team.
Yes.
Losing in overtime to Canada. I know you were talking about it a little bit before, Nick, of going to overtime, the power plays. Do you kind of want to recap what you saw happening? Was it Canada just taking advantage of the perfect opportunity, or was it the U.S. women's team kind of falling apart under pressure there?
Well, in the first couple minutes of the overtime period, the women's team, the American women's team, dominated the first probably 4 to 5 minutes of overtime. They gained a power play. They were unable to convert. They had several shots that the goalie from Canada was able to save. But as overtime went on, just mistakes started to be made. They lost out. Canada got a power play as well, and Canada just kept upping their opportunities and finally they scored to the glove side of the American keeper, which is how all 3 goals were scored, on her glove side.
Yeah, it's always rough to see something like that. And I know I unfortunately didn't get to watch the entirety of the women's game, but I did watch that overtime. And just watching it, you could definitely sense the shift there, that the U.S. women had the power, and then slowly as the power plays kind of went more towards Canada's side, it just, they ended up getting a lucky one in there. But that is it for the Olympics. So we're just going to do a quick recap. What do you guys take away from this? What was your favorite part of the Olympics this year?
For me, it actually comes from the amount of times we lost in the Olympics, and we come into these Olympics thinking that we have these big name guys, Shaun White, Shawnee Davis, that they're gonna medal, get gold, and they don't. But it was really the grace and defeat that I saw, and no matter what, the U.S. absolutely hung in there. There are times when if you didn't know the medal count, you were like, well, the U.S. is probably not doing really good if you're not getting notifications about this.
Yeah.
But no, they finished a strong second. Would have been nice to have first, but Russia, obviously, home field advantage.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Nick, what are you taking away from this? Favorite part, least favorite part? What's your impression of Sochi?
In every Winter Olympics, one of my favorite events is always bobsled. And you've got to enjoy the Jamaican bobsled team.
How'd they end up finishing this year?
I did not see what place they finished, but it's always...
Wasn't good, right?
It's never that great, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it's so impressive that a country that never gets snow, never gets ice, still sends athletes to the Olympics to bobsled. And if you ever watch how they train in like little car-like things that they roll down a hill. And it's really impressive to think of the fact that they don't have the ability to train like some of these the American team and the Russian team, where they're training at top-rate facilities year-round, and yet they still send athletes to the Olympics and they still give it their best.
Yeah, they definitely do. Speaking of Jamaican bobsled teams, Cool Runnings, great movie, watch it. Lucky Egg and all, perfect. They did bring the Lucky Egg back this year. I don't know if you guys saw that. They brought the Lucky Egg back. Kind of a homage to the movie. I mean, he knew what he was doing with that, but it's definitely something good for Jamaica there. As for me, part I'm taking away from Sochi Olympics has just been the fact, it kind of builds off of Deepak, that our U.S.'s stars didn't perform as we hoped they would. Shaun White, Shawnee Davis, all that sort of stuff. But we still performed, and we still got a good amount of medals from some of the smaller guys that you wouldn't really expect. And I think that just kind of shows some of the perseverance and the amount of talent we have for U.S. Olympics. But that's it for our Olympics coverage right now. Maybe we'll have another segment to wrap up the final once Ben gets back. I know he's going to want to talk about that. But I'm hoping you guys are sticking with us. We got a few more segments that are going to be just as action-packed as this one.
Hi viewers, welcome to SportsZone and a special edition of Studio 90 here. No Mike Gardner today, so my name is Alan Wynn. I'm joined by Nick Papadis here, and we're going to talk about Champions League this week because there are some big calls this week. If you recall, this is the first half of the round of 16, the first legs of the round of 16. So we'll go ahead and start off in Manchester City against Barcelona. Nick, what did you make of the call that the ref made?
Well, that was a little bit of a controversial call. There's no doubt that it was a red card for
to clarify for our viewers, it was Martin De Michelis, Argentine center back, trained against his Argentine teammate Lionel Messi. He's a half-decent player. Messi's through on goal, and De Michelis slides in, brings him down right at the edge of the box. Red card, penalty awarded. Barcelona score and go on to win the game 2-0.
So as I was saying, there's no doubt that De Michelis goes out on a red card. You can't slide in when there's one man back when he's in on goal. However, whether it should have been a penalty, I'm still not sold. Messi fell inside the box, but contact was made outside the box, and I think the shot should have been taken from just outside the 18.
See, I see that in a way, but I've also seen them. We see how in the European game, some of the refs tend to they side on the more contentious call. Let's put it that way. I mean, that's what you see generally. And some people say it ruined the game because it was a penalty award, but the initial contact was made and it continued through on into the box. The ref had a decent view of it, so was it a penalty? Was it a penalty? Do you agree with Pellegrini's comments that it sort of ruined the game? It ruined the tie.
I don't agree with those comments because what it comes down to is it wasn't a 1-0 loss for Manchester City. Dani Alves went on in the late part of the game to score a second. If it had gone down 1-0, I could see his point. I could see his frustration, but they did concede another goal. Mm-hmm. It was not the only goal they conceded. Hart was he was Joe Hart. That's all I can say about that. And Dani Alves put it past him on a beautiful connection with Neymar to make it a 2-0 game.
Yeah. And speaking of another red card this past week and against another English team, it was Wojciech Szczesny was sent off against Bayern Munich for Arsenal. What did you make of that call?
I agree with that call. Many fans, especially Arsenal fans, have disagreed with that call because they said that it should have been a yellow card because Robin dove. I disagree with that because what it comes down to is Szczesny played the man, not the ball, and you have to play the ball. If you play the man, if you make contact, it's an automatic red card.
Right. And I think he's last man back. It was clear denial of a goal-scoring opportunity because Robin was so close to the goal. You see Szczesny when he's positioning his body when he's through on goal. He's going to be big on Robin, not to go and play the ball, not to go and swipe the ball away. So I think it was a pretty clear red card. Plenty of fallout from that. What do you see? What's your most anticipated matchup for this coming week in the Champions League? I know you're a Liverpool fan, so I mean.
I'm a very big Liverpool fan, so
they're not there.
That's a problem. But next year we'll be there. We're still holding top 4 spot.
All right.
But this coming week, Dortmund's always exciting. Mm-hmm. You're always looking forward to see Robert Lewandowski.
Right.
As far as other matches, I mean, Real Madrid this week, and it's all the big games, in my opinion, were this past week with all of the giants that are almost guaranteed later stages. You had PSG this past week.
Mm-hmm. Ibrahimovic's goal. What about that, right?
Ibrahimovic's goal. The first.
Great friend of the show.
The penalty kick is a penalty kick. It's okay, but the second goal, placed in the upper 90 from fairly well outside the box.
25. I think I would say about 25 on his weak foot. Does Ibra have a weak foot? The man doesn't have a weak foot. He doesn't have a weak bone in his
Ibra
body.
does not have a weak foot. Ibra does. There's been videos with him scoring power shots with his knee. The man doesn't have a weak foot. It might not be his dominant foot, but it was still a very impressive goal. Very good placement. There was no saving that for the keeper.
Yeah.
And Leverkusen's gone down by 3 goals in their past, I think, 3 or 4 Champions League matches.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
they seem to do really well domestically, but something about the European game just throws them off. I've seen that happen to them in the past. But now pivoting to another exciting weekend in the English Premier League, the title race is still on for every single team who we thought was going to be in the title race.
Yeah, I was a little bit concerned for Man City going in because they did have such a late goal. Arsenal dominated Sunderland. They never cracked. They conceded 1
Great
goal.
Goal by Rosicky, by the way.
That was
Great team movement.
That was beautiful play, beautiful one-touch passing. You can't ask for more from a team than that goal right there.
But again, they still struggle. They can destroy those weaker teams, but they still struggle. I view them as still struggling against really top opposition, very organized teams. And I'm talking about your Bayern Munich, your Chelsea, your Man City. Man United have done pretty well against them, honestly.
I would completely agree with that. They always have trouble against those top-tier teams. Man City's going to cause anyone trouble. Man City has such a deep squad. Liverpool beat them significantly a couple weeks ago. That was very fun for me to give all of my Arsenal fan friends a hard time about that one. They do perfectly fine against the bottom half of the table, but when they're playing a top half team, it's a challenge, especially when they're playing away. they've had problems playing away.
And I think we also saw some really great play from Liverpool today. I will give Liverpool credit today, and I think just to touch on my team, Chelsea, I think we saw some very resilient goal, something throwing it back to 2005. Last point we want to go into the La Liga action this weekend. Real Madrid couldn't ask for much more than to have both of their rivals drop points.
Not at all. The Atletico game was a huge shocker. You had Osasuna upsetting Atletico 3-0, all with first half goals.
Yep.
And then Barcelona fell 3-1.
Yeah, 3-1 to Sociedad. So Madrid keeps on rolling. And with that, we're going to chest and volley it back to the studio. This has been Studio 90 with Alan Wynn and Nick.
Hello and welcome back. This is SportsZone. In case you forgot, I hope you guys didn't, because how could you not forget a face like this? But now we're going to be talking about some NBA action. And just like I said earlier, we have an action-packed panel with tons of people, and this is who they are. Remember these faces? Well, they are back. We got Deepak and Nick over here, and we're going to be talking some NBA action. First part about this, and this is what we're probably going to be talking about for the rest of the season, and if you've turned on ESPN at all to listen about NBA, that's also what they're talking about. And this is going to be the MVP race. And as you guys have been paying attention, because I know you have been, it's Kevin Durant of the Oklahoma City Thunder and some guy by the name of LeBron James from the Miami Heat. You may have heard of him. He's won a few MVPs in the past. He's won back-to-back NBA championships with the Miami Heat, so he's kind of a pretty good player. But it's a neck-and-neck race right now, but a lot of people have been putting it towards Kevin Durant just because of the points he's been scoring, especially when Russell Westbrook has been absent. But now that Westbrook's coming back, LeBron James has been picking it up, hoping to win another MVP. The race is getting a little bit closer. Deepak, they had a big game the other day, Miami Heat, Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Miami Heat ended up coming out on top. Do you think this game gave LeBron James the advantage in the MVP race?
I do, and that's mainly because he is LeBron, and it is the Heat. The Heat have obviously had their ups and downs like every other team that's not the Sixers. The Sixers just constantly downs. But for me, it's how the media votes, and I see Kevin Durant actually like a player similar to Miguel Cabrera in baseball, who always got snubbed for an MVP until he had Prince Fielder around, and then he started winning his MVPs.
Yep.
LeBron, I think it's all based off of how far the Heat are going to go. If they win another one, he's got the MVP in the bag. There's been the whole discussion about the Mount Rushmore of the NBA, and while James left himself off, surprise, surprise, he has said that he will eventually be on the next NBA Mount Rushmore, and I think winning what would be, I believe, his fourth MVP.
It might be fifth.
Maybe
I think
fifth.
I think he's won 4 already.
That would solidify it for him.
Okay.
And
Wow.
I see him as the front runner. I mean, he has Wade and Bosh, but it's really a LeBron James show, even with the broken nose.
Even with the broken nose, going to be wearing the mask probably again soon. So Nick, Kevin Durant started out like Kevin Durant does. Russell Westbrook goes down, and he explodes out there. LeBron James kind of stays at the same level, but this game, like I said, a lot of people are saying that this game put LeBron ahead of KD. You just heard Deepak say it. Do you think that Durant still has the advantage? If the season ends right now, who wins?
If the season were to end today, I think it would go to Durant solely because he has put up such an impressive season. He's been the first player since 2003 to have 11 straight games with over 30 points. He consistently performed all the way through January. He's still consistently performing in February. And despite it being, yes, it is LeBron, and LeBron is always going to be LeBron, but this year I think it's the Durant show.
Okay, this year, the Durant show, you heard it here. Maybe not first, but you heard it here. Quick question for both of you guys. Russell Westbrook's back. Does this hurt or help KD?
It helps. It helps in a weird way. Durant's point totals are going to go down, but it's going to propel the Thunder further.
Okay.
And if they end up winning the championship, it's Durant.
Yeah.
If they don't, it's LeBron. I hate to be the bad guy here.
Yeah. Nick, help or hurt?
I think it's going to help because it will help the team. And if But this is the make or break point for Durant. If he is able to keep it up at the same pace that he's been going with Westbrook back, it's a whole nother story. It's going to propel the team forward. It could hurt his point totals, and that's what we're going to have to wait and see.
All right. So we'll see how that kind of plays out. Switching gears quite a bit right now, we have some news coming for an older NBA player, 35-year-old Jason Collins, who played last year with the Celtics, is coming back to the NBA. He just today signed a 10-day contract with the Brooklyn Nets. Doesn't seem like that big of a deal. What this contract will do is it will make him the first openly gay athlete to play in one of the 4 professional sports. Deepak, what sort of role do you see this playing in the NBA? First openly gay athlete.
This is huge. Coming off the back of the announcement in the college football arena with Michael Sam, how's he gonna fare in the NFL? It's good that they finally decided to give Jason Collins his chance. No one had signed him after his announcement. He was a guest at the State of the Union when President Obama spoke. And I think it's really shedding more light. And it's going to obviously bring more tolerance. There are players that have always said, ever since Collins' announcement, that they'd be totally fine if they had a player who's gay in the locker room. There are others who said, I guarantee you I've had a teammate who's been gay who just never came out.
Yeah.
It's really, if the guy can play, let him play. And yeah, he's aging, so maybe he won't be as good, but it's not a knock against who he is personally, and it's a huge step.
Yeah. And Nick, do you see that this announcement or this signing by the Brooklyn Nets as completely changing the NBA culture? I mean, as we know, the NBA locker room versus the NFL locker room is very different, and they've been saying that all along. The NFL locker room is a lot more supercharged. It's the man's game, and you've heard that with some of the players releasing things. The NBA locker room has a little bit different of a persona with it. Do you see this completely changing it or no?
I do see it changing the NBA as well as other leagues because the NBA has kind of set the standard for leagues now. Other leagues are going to be like, okay, the NBA has taken a step forward. It's time that we do the same. I think it'll help athletes across the board. I think it'll help athletes in all sports. And in the NBA particularly, a basketball locker room, because the team is smaller, the teams are always very tight-knit. They're very family-like. And I think it's going to be the same as if it were any other family. They're not going to shun a family member.
Okay, exactly. And like I said, the key part to this is that it's only been a 10-day contract. Do you guys think that he's signing for 10 days to, hey, make him be the first openly gay athlete in a professional sport? Or do you think they're trying to sign him to say, okay, we're going to give him a shot and see if he can play still? What do you think is going to happen, Deepak?
I think it's to send the message. Personally, I think Jason Collins would also like to just be there to send a message. You could probably see him retiring anyway within the next year or so, only because of his age. The Nets right now don't look like they're obviously going to go too far, but it's give him a shot, see what he does. He can sign for longer, or he could just end up retiring.
Yeah, exactly. Nick, do you see this carrying out, or do you think it's 10 days and done?
I think more than likely it's 10 days and done. However, if he were to stand out, I would be very surprised if the Nets didn't sign him, if he does perform at a high level.
All right, so that's all we have right now for some NBA action. I hope you guys are staying tuned because we got some more SportsZone coming your way. Hello and welcome back to SportsZone. As you can tell from this two-man panel, that means one thing and one thing only. When it's me and Deepak, we're talking baseball, which means we're going to get into third base right here. First part we want to talk about, we touched upon it a little bit last week, or we wanted to at least, and this is the AL West. Always been some pretty good teams out there, but now it looks like this year, finally, they might be the league to beat. I'm not going to say team to beat because there's too many of them out there. We got the Mariners. We got the Angels. We got the Oakland Athletics. We got the Texas Rangers. And we got the Houston Astros. So, besides Houston Astros, Deepak, AL West, do you agree that this might be one of the best leagues this year? The best conferences this year?
Definitely, because of all the signings that they've had in the offseason and in the past few offseasons too. We expect the Angels to break out eventually with Pujols and Josh Hamilton. They already have Jeff Weaver coming back from injury, and they have arguably one of the best players, if not the best, Mike Trout, leading the charge right there. you have Oakland, who's always that small market team that just surprises. For the past two seasons, they've been
yeah.
surprising. And then the M's who signed everyone who's out there, the Rangers who acquired Prince Fielder, and then Houston, who, honestly speaking, I don't see Houston as being the worst team in all of baseball this year because they did sign some legitimate players.
They did get some good
so
quality players out there in Houston.
It's definitely a much stronger league now.
Yeah. No,
Who
it's
knows?
definitely, it'll be interesting to see how it goes because yes, they all added players.
Yeah.
But you also have to keep in fact that a lot of those teams that added players, to add players, a lot of times you're losing players.
Yeah.
So Rangers added Prince Fielder.
Lost Ian Kinsler.
In the process, they have to trade away Ian Kinsler.
Yeah.
Angels trade away Mark Trumbo this year to the Diamondbacks, right?
They got 2 young pitchers out of that.
They did get. That's one thing the Angels are doing. They stocked up on pitching this year,
They did.
which is if their offense can come around, we'll see how that carries them. Mariners, they kind of started with nothing, so they didn't really lose a ton. They mostly added. They did lose Raul Ibanez.
Yeah, who's with the
switching
Angels
teams to
now.
The Angels.
And actually, Franklin Gutierrez, the center field Gold Glover from 2 seasons ago, actually announced he's not playing this season.
He's not playing this season.
No.
Okay.
He's still young, 29, I believe.
Yeah,
30.
he's not that old at all.
So, that's
So we'll
interesting.
see what that does. Oakland. I don't know. Oakland really didn't lose anyone. They're probably going to stay the same. And like you said, Astros added a bunch of people, but I don't really see them bringing this up that much. I mean, they're going to get better than they were last year.
They're still a 110 loss team.
Yeah,
you
no,
know.
easily. They're still going to be at least a 100 loss team.
Yeah.
They're going to be better. Their players are going to be a little bit older. That was one thing that hurt them last year. They had a lot of young players.
That they dumped to get some. I mean, Dexter Fowler, he's 27, I believe, so not old, but
and covering that center field out in
not so, I
Astros for
believe it's
him
called.
is going to be crazy. But if you have to pick right now, all those teams that we just listed, who's going to be number one?
I think it's the M's. The
Really?
Mariners, they added guys like Robinson Cano and a closer like Fernando Rodney. Also with the new manager, Lloyd McClendon,
Yep.
who was the hitting coach for the Tigers for
That's
going
going to be a big pickup for them. That's
It
going to
is.
definitely be a big pickup.
And so it's an adjustment for hitters like Cano, but you also then have what I consider one of the greater 1-2 punches in the starting rotation with Felix Hernandez, who, even though it looked like he had a down season, still amazing job.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have a guy named Hisashi Iwakuma, who you give him the innings he needs, he'll get you good wins. Solid 3. Yeah, about 3 ERA.
Oh,
I'd
yeah,
say this
easily.
year.
Yeah.
He had a 2.6 last year.
Okay. I don't know about the M's. I know that they added a lot of people, definitely Robinson Cano, but you have to think Safeco Field is a little bit more spacious.
It is.
Especially with he's coming from New York where they had the short right porch.
Yep.
It's going to boost up his power numbers, boost up his RBIs, runs, and average. So I see all of those taking a little bit of a dip. Not a ton, because he still was a 25 to 30 home run guy even before they built the new stadium. So I see those taking a little bit of a dip. They lost Raul Ibanez, who was a big bat for them last year.
40 years old, almost. I think he tied Lou Gehrig's. Was it Lou Gehrig or Mickey
I
Mantle?
think it was one
Ted
of them,
Williams.
yeah.
There we go. Ted Williams'
Even better.
record of, oldest player to hit. I believe it was 27 home runs.
He had a lot, yeah. And I mean, that was definitely a surprise, but they do still have a lot of people. But I honestly think this year is going to be the year for the Angels.
Okay.
I think this is the year. Pujols was hurt by injuries all last
Yes.
year. He had a foot injury, didn't play, wasn't playing real well. Hamilton has said, he's come out saying that he's more focused this year. He's a little bit better shape, all that sort of stuff. They lost Trumbo, which is going to hurt him, but they picked up Ibanez. Ibanez isn't going to fill in for Trumbo because Trumbo was a 275, 30 home run guy.
Yeah.
But
Very
Ibanez, I think he'll probably bat 275 probably, maybe hit out
If
20
he's
home
lucky.
runs.
Yeah.
If he's lucky, but I really see a big year. I mean, obviously Trout, he's going to be as good as ever. I see a big year for Pujols. I see a big year for Josh Hamilton. Trout's always going to be in their pitching staff.
Yes.
That's what they knew they needed to focus on. They have C.J. Wilson still in there. They have Jared Weaver.
Jared
Weaver.
Jared.
They have Jared Weaver. You said Jeff and you screwed me up. Jared Weaver. And they added a bunch of young arms.
They did.
And they added a bunch of good young arms, too. It's not like they just added a bunch of garbage guys. So I really think that the Angels are going to be the first in the AL West this year.
Now, of course, we talked about all these big pickups, and then out of nowhere come the A's, who didn't really sign many at all, if anyone. And
I don't
they'll
know.
just take it.
I don't see the A's. I think Texas is going to be up there. But we'll see how that pans out.
It's always going to be a close race.
It's always going to be a close race. Switching to another close race, NL East.
NL East.
Pretty close past few years.
Yeah.
Remember last week when we were talking about the Braves throwing down big money for their players? Well, the Braves are making another big splash this week, signing very young shortstop Andrelton Simmons to a 7-year, $58 million deal. Now, like I said, young player. Probably their best young player because he was a rookie last year.
He was.
So that's when he's young. He's younger than Freeman, younger than Hayward, all that sort of stuff. Why are they spending this money on him now? They know they have him for a rookie contract over the next few years. Why spend the money now on him?
I think it's for the sake of, actually knowing they can lock him up for a while. The Braves, they have these pieces already to make them a good young team that's going to, I believe, actually win the NL East again this year and for a few years to come. I understand people are saying the Nationals are going to reclaim the NL East crown, but with the Braves, with this consistency that they have and the core that they will not change for years to come, it reminds me of the Phillies of a few years ago. We had the 5 years of winning the division.
Yeah.
Simmons posted the best ever season defensively, ever.
He did. Yep.
And so knowing that he's a great defensive arm who actually was a solid hitter as well and who's only going to improve, it's a wise move.
I definitely think it's a wise move on the fact that, one, I didn't look at how the contracts lined up.
Yeah.
But if it's split evenly or backloaded, which is probably going to be backloaded, they're going to be paying for him too much now, but give it 6 years when he's a star, they'll be making bank.
Oh, yeah.
They'll be running away with it, which is exactly what I think they were trying to do with that. So that's all we have for MLB coverage today. Again, it's going to be heating up more and more as spring training is starting. First pitch is coming soon.
4 days away.
4 days away to the first pitch, and you guys will see all the coverage here on ATV Sports Zone. Keep it locked, guys. Welcome back to Sports Zone. Hope you guys have been waiting for this, but we got some NFL action. NFL season's over, combine starting up, draft's going to be soon, so there's not a ton to be talking about, but there has been some big news lately with the NFL, and this mostly revolves around Johnny Manziel. He thinks he should be number one. Some people think he should be number one. Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, them. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Texans have the number one pick. He's a Texas boy, goes to Texas A&M. Texans need a new quarterback. They have the number one pick. Do you see the Texans drafting him at number one?
I think I can. Because Manziel, being Manziel, doing what he's done while at A&M, he's nothing short of a great rookie quarterback. You can't call him a great quarterback yet. We don't know how he'll fare in the NFL. But he's definitely got a case for being number one. The Texans are looking for a new starting quarterback. Schaub never really panned out. The man has a cannon. He's just not accurate. So.
And Nick, what do you think on this? There's been some issues surrounding Johnny Manziel, obviously with the Peyton Manning camp and his arrogance, winning the Heisman as a freshman, all this sort of stuff. He's actually publicly came out and said that he thinks the Texans should draft him because if they don't, they'd be missing a great opportunity. Do you think that the Texans, put in this situation, should draft Johnny Manziel, or do you think they're just going to be ending in a bad situation if they do?
I think with the Texans having number one pick, he's a great pick because, as you said, the Texans desperately need a quarterback. It's time for them to get a new quarterback, and this is a good opportunity for them. If any other team had the first pick overall, then it would be another story. But overall, I think the Texans should pick up Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing. They do need a quarterback, so Johnny might be up there. Johnny may fall down the board depending on how his combine comes out. Or there's another big guy by the name of Jadeveon Clowney that might be climbing up the board. And I know reporters are saying, imagine a combination between Jadeveon Clowney and J.J. Watt at your defensive end positions, which, at that point gives the Texans an almost unfair defensive line. And then they'll have Cushing at linebacker still and everything. So they'd have a great defense in that situation. But changing gears a little bit, like I said, NFL offseason, not a ton going on. But it was reported earlier, I think about 2 days ago, that the Cleveland Browns were looking to get a new head coach. Yes, already a new head coach. I know, they just signed one. But this new head coach, his name is Jim Harbaugh. So reports are saying that the Browns were interested in trading for Jim Harbaugh, We don't know what was the supposed deal. We don't know the compensation picks. But 49ers coach going to the Browns. Everyone squashed this rumor. Apparently it's not true. Someone started it. Harbaugh says there's no way he's going to the Browns. 49ers president said that this trade never existed. It's never even been talked about. Let's say in some theoretical world where this is kind of talked about. Deepak, do you see the 49ers ever trading Jim Harbaugh to the Cleveland Browns?
I would see that only happening if the Browns, gave the Niners all their picks for the next 5 years. I mean, you're talking about a coach who he's had great success from the very beginning as a head coach with the 49ers. And I mean, obviously me being an Eagles fan, knowing that both Jim and John Harbaugh used to be coaches on the Eagles staff, I hurt every time I see them even win a game. And Jim's a great coach. In a world where the Browns would be willing to dump all that, just like they dumped their whole front office and everyone else, I think that could happen only if that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and obviously Jim Harbaugh, great coach with the 49ers this year. But I guess the one thing that people are worried about is the fact that Jim Harbaugh has been known to kind of stretch the truth a little bit. A few years ago when they were interested in Peyton Manning, they said, we're not talking with Peyton Manning. We don't want Peyton Manning. Alex Smith's our quarterback, blah, blah, blah. Well, they were talking with Peyton Manning the entire time. Nick, do you think that this actually happened? Do you think this was discussion and Harbaugh's just trying to play it down?
I think it's a possible discussion, but as Deepak was saying, it's not a very realistic discussion because of what the Browns would have to give up for this to even be possible. The odds of this are slim to none, but as you said, they do have a history. There is a slim chance of it.
Yeah, very, very slim chance. The amount of picks that the Browns would be giving up to get Jim Harbaugh would, I mean, you could see first-round picks for the next few years easily, and maybe even some players in this deal. But probably not going to happen. Stay tuned and watch on that. One more topic left for SportsZone's NFL segment today, and that's Ray Rice. Ray Rice has recently been arrested. And controversy surrounding Ray Rice, well, he knocked out his girlfriend, he knocked out a security guard, seen dragging his girlfriend's body out of the club. Information is still kind of coming in. What do you think is going to happen? We'll start with Nick this time. Nick, what do you think is going to happen to Ray Rice from the NFL side?
Well, you expect to see a suspension from the NFL side because if they don't suspend him, what is that saying for the NFL's image? The NFL will always protect the NFL first. And you can't expect anything other than at least a suspension going into the beginning of the season. Whether that'll be, the length of that suspension is yet to be determined, but I would almost bank on some sort of suspension.
Some sort of suspension. Okay. Deepak, do you see this somehow, as they're investigating this, getting a little bit worse? Or do you think it's just going to be suspension, hurts him for a few games, and Ray Rice is going to jump back up and play?
I think it's just going to be the suspension part. I can't really see the players' union wanting to fully defend this in terms of, Ray Rice. He knows what he did. He knows it's wrong. There is evidence, obviously. Yeah. Unlike A-Rod saying there's no evidence against him, MLB. But you got Ray Rice right there. He'll be suspended a few games. It's going to hurt his stock not only as an NFL running back, but for fantasy leagues too. You think about this. I consider him to be a top 5 running back still in the league, and so if you're suspended, I'm saying 3 games at least, and maybe at most 4 or 5. Okay. It's going to really hurt him. Yeah. Top running back. It's going to hurt his progress and his fantasy stash as well.
They definitely will. And like you said, I'm thinking 3 games is probably going to be the max. Maybe a fine thrown in there as well. And obviously the NFL always has some sort of counseling thing that they have to convince these players to do, which, clearly shows that it works every single time. But that's all we've run out for this segment of ATV SportsZone Talks About NFL. Like I said, it's the off season. We don't have a lot of stuff to talk about, but we like to keep you guys updated. So stay tuned for our next segment of SportsZone. And welcome back to SportsZone. As you can tell from this 2-man segment, this is your favorite segment on SportsZone, and this is Shin to Chin. I'm Dylan, this is Brian, and we're going to be bringing you some MMA action. Always pretty up-to-date topics that we talk about because the fights usually happen on Saturday, sometimes on Friday. Not that often though. But we bring them to you on Sunday. We're going to start out this week with UFC 170. And first fight we're going to talk about is the Daniel Cormier versus Pat Cummins fight. And Cormier versus Cummins. It was going to be a big fight, and then was it Rashad? Who got hurt? Rashad Evans got hurt, and then Pat Cummins, who was an old training partner with Cormier, fills in, and Cormier destroys him within the first round. Like, what was this? What did this fight look like?
Honestly, this is exactly what everyone should have expected, despite all the hype and whatnot around the fight. Patrick Cummins was trying to sell the fight. It was pretty obvious from that. I'm sure they got a few more 100 pay-per-views out of him selling the fight, but there probably is some real animosity there. But to think that Patrick Cummins, who has a 4-0 record, never fought the competition that Daniel Cormier has, to step into the octagon with the number 2 by some ranked heavyweight in the world, who's now dropping to light heavyweight, and fight him on 10 days' notice, that is crazy. There's no way that Patrick Cummins should have or had the ability to beat him, especially on 10 days' notice. He at least needs a full fight camp, especially considering that Daniel Cormier is undefeated.
Yeah.
There's no chance.
Like you said, moving down to light heavyweight.
It's going to be stronger and faster.
And he was. And you could tell Cummins tried to shoot, I think it was something like 4 times. He tried to go for the takedown. Cormier stopped him every time. And on the third one is when he clips him with a big right hand and drops Cummins. And ever since that point in the fight, it was over.
Yeah.
There was no shot.
Definitely, it was over, and it was a good example of what a good stoppage was, because Daniel Cormier was all over him, and he took 8, 9, 10 shots unanswered. Cormier was pressuring him the whole time. He couldn't get back up. Very good stoppage. Absolute domination. I think Patrick Cummins still has a couple more fights in the UFC because he's actually officially signed. But to be welcomed by Daniel Cormier, not going to happen.
That's not the way you want to start your UFC career,
Exactly.
fighting someone like Daniel Cormier. Because that guy's a big guy, moving down a weight class. He's going to look even bigger. And like you said, good stoppage. We're going to switch and use that to go to a stoppage that has some people confused. And this is unfortunately the headliner fight, the big championship fight between Ronda Rousey and Sarah McMahon. As you saw in last week's show, we predicted that Ronda Rousey was going to win. She did. We also predicted that she was most likely going to win via armbar, again, for the 10th time in a row. Surprisingly, she didn't this time. She wins via TKO, and some people are saying Herb Dean called it a little bit early. What do you think, Brian?
I definitely think that Herb Dean called it too early, especially for a championship fight. It was way too early. Joe Lozon actually was on Reddit, and he said he came in and said that anyone who's saying it's a bad stoppage has never taken a liver shot. Well, here's the thing. Travis Brown, when he got absolutely mauled by Overeem, that was grounds for a stoppage, like some could even say. But the fact that the fight kept on going, it allowed for that comeback to happen. And the matter of fact is, Sarah McMahon, she was on her way up. The punches that Ronda was delivering as she was getting back up didn't seem very strong, and she didn't seem rocked at all. So I don't know. Some people could say one or the other. I honestly think it was too early for a title fight. Never want to see fighters get hurt, but for a title fight, you got to put everything on the line, and the referees have to understand that. You have to let a fighter get injured or unable to continue in order for a championship fight to get stopped, and I really felt that was the issue in this fight.
Yeah, it definitely depends how you look at it. She takes the liver shot, and then she takes 3 or 4 punches to the head, and that's it. Herb Dean calls it there. So, I mean, you could say, she wasn't defending the punches, but she was definitely on her way up, and it looked like she was going to try to fight back against Ronda Rousey, which is kind of upsetting. I mean, I like to see Ronda win. It's interesting to see Ronda win in a different way that we haven't seen it before, but I would have loved to have seen her win via armbar or just had this fight drag on, which it didn't.
Right. I thought that there was a possibility for her to get the armbar again, but here's the issue. I don't know how she was going to take her down. And I remember, that was one of my concerns before, is she's going to have a really hard time taking her down. How's she going to take her to the ground? Well, she didn't need to.
She didn't, yeah. And you could tell she was definitely struggling to take her to the ground.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. Possible rematch, we're thinking. Brian's thinking at least.
It's justified, I'd say so.
Yeah. So it makes sense to have a rematch there. So we're going to switch things a little bit. We're going to switch cards a little bit. See what I did there with that one? We're going to move into next fight, which is going to be UFC 171. We got a pretty big card. I think it's a pretty good card.
Yeah.
And we're going to start at the bottom with some big fights. We got Jake Shields versus Hector Lombard.
Yeah.
Now, if you guys know Hector Lombard, he's a small truck.
Yeah. He's a mid-sized truck.
Mid-sized truck. This guy's huge. Jake Shields, not as big.
Not the greatest fighter in terms of striking, a very good grappler.
Yes.
We've seen him dominate Maya on the ground, not because he's a better grappler per se, but a very good wrestler, very good control. His striking has always looked it seems like it's some of the worst striking that I've ever seen as a professional fighter. And I'm not trying to be mean to him, but it's really sloppy at times, which is one of the reasons why I'm so critical about that GSP Jake Shields fight. But here's the thing. Jake Shields does really bad against big power punchers. Jake Ellenberger, he got rocked by Dan Henderson. He did end up beating Dan Henderson in that fight. But we see that every time he fights a strong wrestler with big hands, he gets hit. And that's a really bad thing, especially going throughout your career. And especially a guy like Hector Lombard, who hits as hard as he does and is as fast as him. It's a really, really bad matchup for him. I have Hector Lombard winning this by a KO, I don't know, in the first or second.
First round.
First round or second.
It's gonna be a big, fast fight, and you know Hector Lombard's gonna come out strong.
Yeah.
Next big fight I'm looking forward to, at least, is Carlos Condit, the natural-born killer, versus Tyron Woodley. Now this one's a little bit interesting.
Yeah.
Personally, I feel like this one could go either way. You never know what to expect with Carlos Condit, whether he's going to knock you out or get you with some sort of submission, which he can do. But then you got to think of how dangerous Tyron Woodley is.
Very dangerous. Tyron Woodley is actually one of those guys who's a strong wrestler, with really great hands. Here's the thing, Carlos Condit, a very, very smart striker. Haven't really seen him dominated, ever. I mean, maybe by GSP, but even then he puts him in trouble. Yeah. And that's the thing. I think Carlos Condit has the experience. He has the technical skill. He's a very good fighter. And I think he wins this via submission. Okay. If he's smart about it, Tyron Woodley, I see him charging in, going in for punches, going in for a takedown, and getting submitted by Carlos Condit's great guard. Okay.
And we got one last fight. We got to do this one a little bit quickly. Just tell me who you think is going to be winning this one. We got Johnny Hendricks versus Robbie Lawler. And if you guys remember, this is going to be the fill-in fight for the middleweight belt? Welterweight belt GSP. After GSP evacuated the belt. Who do you think is going to win, Johnny Hendricks or Robbie Lawler?
I'd say this is probably the first time I'm going to say it's a throw-up. I'm not really sure. Okay. Both guys, big, powerful hands, both southpaws. It's going to be really exciting. Lots of power punches going to be thrown.
Yeah, so it's definitely going to be a high-paced fight. And that fight, UFC 171, is going to be March 15th. So we got a little bit more time. We'll probably preview it a little bit more. But that's about all the time we got today for UFC, guys. We'll see you again next week, and this has been Chin to Chin. Hello, and welcome back to Sports Zone. As you can tell, this is our final segment. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I don't know if we're going to be able to get the graphic in there, so if it's there, there's the graphic. Probably not in there. But this is where we get to say what we like, say what's good, say what's bad. We have three people right here, so we're doing the whole wide shot. You'll see all of our reactions to everything. So we're going to start way at the end with Brian. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Go.
All right, it's my first time on thumbs, and I gotta say,
this is your first time?
I think
This is your
so.
first time.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Jeez.
I gotta say, first of all, to start off, thumbs down to basketball. Awful game. All right, we'll just start off with that.
Fighting words.
All right, and then we'll go to thumbs down again to Herb Dean. Great guy, great ref. Recently, I don't know what's up with him. His calls have been a little crappy.
You wrestled him, right? You wrestled Herb Dean.
Yeah,
before.
I did. He's a great guy. He's a great guy, and I wouldn't talk crap to him in his face, but I gotta say, man, that ref job.
Yeah.
Also, one more thumbs down to the men's hockey team. They did it was a good try. It was a good try, but they really could have beaten Canada, and I felt that Finland game was bad.
Yeah, that was a bad game.
That was
a really bad game.
All right, so
Anything,
that's all for me.
Nothing positive?
No
positives.
No.
No thumbs
You're
up.
all-
Oh, one more. Thumbs down. Founders Day. That music. The end.
Yeah,
All right.
that was bad.
All right.
Your turn.
All right, I'll go ahead and start with my thumbs down. Can you even see them? I'm in this very low chair. To this very low chair. I'm 6'4" and I look like a tiny person.
I mean,
Thumbs-
Brian's a tall guy. in case you-
Yeah. Thumbs down to Champions League refs this week. Really making some big calls. I don't know if you made all of them right. It happens. Thumbs down to. No, thumbs up to the weather because
Okay.
there's no snow outside and it's incredible. And if you watched last week, you'll know that I'm from New Orleans, from the South, and I am terrified of snow. Literally white clouds of fear just everywhere, and I have to walk home like a mile home. I almost tore my ACL because I slipped the other day. It was awful. So those are my thumbs. Those are my
your
thumbs on the day.
Okay. I mean, again, still pretty negative there. Hey, I'm going to follow their sentiment right now. I'm going to go thumbs down to Founders Day. Going to echo that one of Brian. It was a great night. Loved the place it was. Food was great.
Yeah.
Those macaroni and cheese balls, dude.
Yeah, all of those are
were
thumbs
delicious.
up.
Those are all thumbs
are
up.
thumbs up.
But Founders Day in general gets a whole thumbs down at the end because of the music. And if you guys are connected at AU, you'll make sure to look at the Eagle. Props to the Eagle. Thumbs up to the Eagle right there. They wrote a great article on how Founders Day was doing great. Everyone was loving it. Kerwin spoke, everything like that. And then the music hit, and everything went downhill.
Yeah.
Literally everything went downhill. It was terrifying. No one knew what music they were playing. The bass was too loud to understand anything, and I'm pretty sure we set a record for the classiest places that you can hear get low. We've done it here. We've done it. Well, this is the Portrait Gallery.
I'm
We did
so
it
ashamed.
At the Library of Congress, and we had it at the American History Museum. The amount of times you can hear "Get Low" reverberating off those ceilings is kind of scary. So thumbs down to Founders Day and whoever picked that music.
Awful.
Thumbs up. We're actually going to go. I just forgot my thumbs up. Thumbs up to baseball season starting. That's what it was. As you heard from the segment with Deepak and I, we have 4 days until the first pitches of spring training. Things seem to be going pretty quickly from what I remember them going the past few years. I think that's just because with classes, everything, the fact that there's still snow on the ground here. It just recently melted though. But the fact that it's been kind of cold recently has hidden that fact that spring training is close by and it's almost starting up, which is great. We're going to do thumbs up to the Sochi Olympics in Russia, wrapping up this week. I think it was 17 days is what it was of Olympic action. As we know, Russia came out on top with 33 medals. Thumbs up to Russia. Not going to hear many people saying that. As you know, I was studying abroad in St. Petersburg last semester, so thumbs up to them. Their hockey team, though, might have done worse than than USA's team.
Yeah.
Their
it was
hockey team
disappointing.
was pretty
Yeah.
bad. So thumbs down to the Russian hockey team. Like
That's pretty bad
let's just
news.
throw that there.
They had good players too.
Quick,
But-
T.O., quick thumbs
Yeah,
up
go ahead.
to the man back there, Nick. He's his first show today, and he did a great job with us. So
No,
props to Nick.
he definitely did. That's
Thumb-
actually going to get into my next thumbs. up
Oh, I'm
right
sorry.
there.
I
So,
stole your thumbs.
You stole my thumbs. Well,
Thumb
not that
swipe.
one. Not that one. Not the Nick.
All right,
one.
all right,
But
all right.
thumbs up to the crew that we had today. As you guys can tell, we had the same reoccurring faces. Not that there's a problem with that. I mean, when you see our faces,
God,
like,
we're some handsome mugs.
like this is good.
Some that shall not be named
Yeah.
aren't on
so,
camera. So
But as you can tell, we had 5 people here today, and we ended up getting the show out, which I think is great props to ATV, great props to the people that we have at SportsZone. Unfortunately, Ben was home. He couldn't make it. Gardner had some friends that he was hanging out with that he hasn't seen in a while, so he couldn't make it. Jaron was sick, or so he says. He couldn't make it. And then that's who we had. That's all we got this year. Erin is out in Ireland, so she left us for some strange
taking
reason.
selfies all over the place.
And she is, too.
taking selfies left
She's
and right.
still hating on Tom Brady, but that's Erin for you.
That's great. Good
But
work.
yeah, so that's pretty much it. I got one last thumbs, and that's going to be to Brian's sudden growth spurt that he's had. As you can see, he's taller than Alan now. But that's all we got for SportsZone today. That is it for thumbs. I would like to thank Brian, Alan, Deepak, Nick in the back for putting out this show. It was a great show, and I hope you guys enjoy it. See you next week for our next SportsZone.